Cinderella squatted behind the brick wall next to Thorn and Adrian. She was wearing her Halloween costume. Since they were about to do some breaking and entering, she thought it would be appropriate to go as a pirate. A sexy goth pirate with black boots, spiderweb stockings, black corset, and a skull and bones bandana. To anyone who didn't know them, the boys were in costume, but they were just wearing their standard garb. Thorn had on his black motorcycle jacket and black jeans. His only nod to the holiday was a black t-shirt with the image of Michael Myers from Rob Zombie's remake of the movie Halloween on it. Similarly, Adrian wore his black trench coat and black jeans and a spiked collar around his neck. His black t-shirt sported a jack-o'-lantern on the front. "There she is," Cinderella said when she heard Chelsea honk her car's horn. Thorn peeked around the brick wall. The cemetery wasn't surrounded by a continuous wall of bricks. Rather, there were alternating segments of solid brick and ironworks composed of vertical and horizontal bars. The tips of the vertical bars were spiked to discourage people from climbing. "He's leaving," Thorn said, watching the guard disappear behind a crypt. They waited half a minute before climbing the wall. Thorn went first. Sitting on top of the bricks, he reached down and helped Cinderella up. Then he lowered her into the graveyard. So far, everything was going exactly as Cinderella planned. She would have preferred coming at twilight, but Chelsea had a party tonight, and the plan wouldn't work without her. Cinderella was more than happy with the results, though. In the light of the late afternoon sun, she could see the granite artwork better. She walked up to the nearest crypt and pressed her hand to the gray stone. It was cool to the touch. A shiver ran up her arm and into her spine. She could almost feel the spirits of the dead entombed within, like a poignant sense of nostalgia for a bygone era. Walking around to the front of the crypt, she read the name chiseled above the door, Livingston. Except for the name, the edifice was otherwise plain. Slightly disappointed, Cinderella turned and proceeded deeper into the necropolis. There was so much more to see and to touch. Her eyes darted from tomb to tomb. She didn't know which one to choose next. She wanted to experience it all, but she knew they didn't have the time. Unlike the Livingston tomb, many of the crypts were elaborately decorated with angels, horses, dogs, birds, deer, and other creatures real or mythical. Some had the cross on their doors. A few had the Star of David. They were all like Gothic cathedrals to her, but there was one that literally stood out and above the rest. She'd seen its dome towering over the graveyard every time she passed by the cemetery. She saw it now, rising over the tops of the crypts in front of her. If nothing else, Cinderella had to see that tomb before she left. She started walking in that direction, running her fingers along the walls of the tombs that she passed, growing more excited the closer she got. She wasn't even aware of where Thorn and Adrian were anymore. Passing in between two beautifully constructed crypts in their own right, Cinderella's heart leapt when the massive monument of granite came into view. It looked like a classic Greek temple with columns all around the perimeter. The tomb stood a distance away from the surrounding crypts, allowing the sinking sun to bathe it in golden orange light, free from shadows. Cinderella walked up to the mausoleum to get a better look at the carvings on the side of the roof. Greek heroes on chariots and foot fought mythic creatures such as the Hydra and Medusa. Beyond the columns were statues of Greek gods and goddesses like Hermes and Aphrodite. Past those, on the inner walls, were colorful mosaics of more gods and legendary heroes. There was mighty Zeus hurling a bolt of lightning, Perseus riding Pegasus, and Atlas holding the world upon his broad shoulders. It wasn't what Cinderella had expected, but it was the most wonderful thing she had ever seen. In awe, she circled the monument until she found a door. Over the mantel, Greek letters spelled what she assumed was the family name of those entombed. Beneath that, in English, was the word Eddington. Should have known that the Eddingtons would have the most extravagant crypt in town, Thornton said. Just another way to show that they're better than everybody else. Let's go inside, said Adrian. Wait, we can't take anything from them, Cinderella said. Why not? Said Thorne. Because it's Chelsea's family. They're not gonna miss anything. It's not right, she said. You have to promise not to steal anything. Okay, Thorne said. I promise not to take anything, but the rest of the tombs are fair game. Sin turned to Adrian. You have to promise as well. Looking disappointed, Adrian nodded his head. I promise, he said. Can we go in now? Said Thorne. Yes, she said, smiling. She was just as anxious to get inside as he was. Thorne pulled on the handle. It's locked, he said. Should have asked Chelsea for the key, said Adrian. That's okay. I brought my own key, Thorne said, holding up a crowbar. Watching Thorne and Adrian force open the door, Cinderella had a bad feeling. A really bad feeling, like something awful was about to happen to them. She shivered as though a cold wind had blown through her. She knew it wasn't right breaking in like this, but it was the only way she was going to see what was inside the crypt. That was all she wanted to do. Look. She hoped Chelsea wouldn't get too mad at her. With a metallic grinding sound, the door popped open. It swung effortlessly on its well-oiled hinges. Beyond the threshold, only a small patch of stone floor was visible. The rest of the interior was shrouded in shadows. The three stood there for a moment, staring into the darkness, each lost in their own thoughts. Holding her breath, visions of the walking dead filled Cinderella's head. Thorne was the first to move. Reaching into his jacket, he pulled out a small flashlight and stepped into the tomb. Adrian followed. Excited and nervous, Sin walked in behind them. Thorne shined the flashlight around the chamber, scanning from left to right. Paradoxically, the tomb seemed both larger and smaller than what Sin had expected. The ceiling, still hidden in umbral darkness, felt cavernous and unknowable, while the marble walls and the large carved figure at the back of the tomb seemed to lean in towards them. In the center of the crypt were two sarcophagi, elaborately engraved to look like a man and a woman, lying on a bed of stone. At their feet, plaques read, Daniel Roland Eddington and Edith Mary Eddington. Against the walls to the left and right were more sarcophagi, but without the engraved figures in repose. In the walls themselves, square burial vaults were cut into the marble. Some were open, others were sealed with markers carved to resemble open scrolls. Opposite the door, watching over the entire sepulchre, was a large statue of Jesus Christ, nailed to the cross, his thorn-crowned head bowed. Thorne pointed the light towards the ceiling. The interior of the dome was painted blue like the sky. Angels and cherubs rested on pillowy clouds, looking down upon the dead with serene gazes. Cool, Cinderella whispered, in awe of the whole scene. Okay, time to pay up, Thorne said, interrupting her perfect moment. We're inside, so start dancing. Now? Might as well get it over with, and I can't think of a better grave to dance on than this one, he said, shining the light in one of the sarcophagi. She stared at Daniel Eddington's grave. You're not scared, are you? No, of course not. Then start stripping. A bet's a bet. Okay, she said with a sly smile. She started peeling her clothes off her body. The two boys watched with grins on their faces. Yeah, give those fuckers a reason to come back from the dead, jeered Thorne. They all laughed. Cinderella slid her black panties down to her ankles and kicked them at Thorne. He snatched it out of the air. Pressing the undergarment to his nose, he inhaled deeply. Enjoy them, she said. They're yours now. They're not getting near my pussy again now that your grubby hands touch them.